Welcome to Make It Happen. I'm your host, Michelle McCullough. Today's episode is with a good friend of mine and a coach of mine, Alan Roberts. We are talking all about coaching and setting yourself up to succeed in your most important assets so that you can take care of the brain and set the goals that will help you to thrive. His insights were incredible, and I even learned a few things. Even though we've spent lots of time talking, I know you need this episode on coaching and how to thrive in this weird world. I'm also sharing with you a few of my favorite things, a random collection, but something I know you need. Stay tuned for today's Make It Happen. My favorite. I shouldn't say that because I have favorite things and then I have favorite segments and then I have favorite episodes. But one of the things that I love about the new show and the new format is the Pick My Brain section. It's where you can send in a question that we can answer on the air. Today, I do not have a question for you, but a plea for you to send me your questions. Anything from personal development to marketing to everything in between. If you have a question and something that I can answer for you on the air that will help you move forward in life and business, you can do that by emailing me at michelle@speakmichelle.com. Put Pick My Brain in the subject line and we will talk about your question on a future episode of Make It Happen. Stay tuned. Today's show is brought to you by the Marketing Blueprint Workshop. I'm excited to bring this to you live, or you can watch the recordings at any time throughout the year. Go to marketingblueprintworkshop.com. It will take you through the step-by-step process for you to write your own marketing plan and set you up to succeed for the next 12 months. But don't take my word for it. Here are a few past attendees and their experience. Hear what they have to say about attending.
I loved Marketing Blueprint. It's just easy to just immediately put into action. You kind of have everything mapped out for what you want to do for the whole year.
This was amazing. Michelle was so awesome. This is a fantastic approach to planning for a successful new year.
It will boost your business just in the fact that you don't have to worry about all the marketing that you need to do, but you're going to be able to schedule it. You're going to be able to know when you're doing things. It's going to give you more confidence in your ability to market and what it is you are marketing. You get very clear on the purpose and what it is that you want out of your business. So that is worth every penny.
Go to marketingblueprintworkshop.com. You'll see tickets available and all of the details that you need. We hope that you can join us. It's one of my favorite things that I do each year. So I am very excited to introduce you to our guest today, Alan Roberts, who is one of my dear friends, but also someone I have paid a check with a comma to give me coaching because I like how he shows up in the world, but I also love the different aspects that he has brought into his life that make me someone that I say, I want to pick your brain. So Alan is a former high school history teacher, but still dabbles in that from time to time, but then now is also an executive director with the John Maxwell team. And I love the personal development and leadership that comes out of that. And so I have hired him to help me understand some of the mess in my head and keep me focused on my goals so that I can move forward. But even before we started talking, so Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
This is fun.
I'm so glad that you're here.
Hi to the community.
I've wanted to have you on for a long time, but we haven't been able to make our schedules match. And so it's finally here, and I'm happy about that. Yes. Before we started rolling, you were talking about how you are clear about how you're showing up in the world. And I want you to say that in your own words.
So clarity is interesting because every time I think I've got it figured out, I get a little bit more clear on it. But right now, for where we're at in the world, the clarity that I would best explain for how I show up in the world is that I am in the world to help people that want to help people, or to help people that know after their help they can help people. I think there's a compounding interest component to that, and so I find a lot of energy knowing that what I do here may be able to amplify there. And quite frankly, none of us can be everywhere. Right. And so one of the things that I hope I do when working with people and individuals, you included, as you mentioned, is I know where you're at and I know the value you're trying to add to the world. So if I can help you better help yourself to increase that value to others, then that's fulfilling part of how I show up in the world.
I like it. Yeah. I like it a lot. Yeah. Tell me about the transition from you going to being an educator.
Yeah.
and in the public school system, but then also transitioning into this new career that you're doing.
Yeah.
And which is not new. I shouldn't say new, but newer than
then.
That.
Yeah, understood. So I came out of college as a history teacher, right? Finished my degree, moved to Houston, Texas, and taught there. I taught in Texas for 6 years, back in Utah for 4 years. And I love teaching. I do. I love my students. I'm still in contact with a bunch of my students. It's a lot of fun. And yet at the same time, I kept hitting what John Maxwell would call your lid, right? But I kept hitting this lid and I couldn't figure out what I was hitting. And I was trying to make this difference with the kids, and so many different components just kept stopping that difference, right? And so I had an opportunity to shift into kind of corporate training world. And so I moved over into the corporate world, started doing some corporate training there. And the business I was working for at the time did a corporate training side, with like a sales management type idea, right? So I worked in the sales management arena, but had another arm where they were training their own clientele as well in family training and family empowerment principles. And so that was an interesting kind of combo there. Was I had the opportunity now, instead of helping the students, to help the generation above the students to understand kind of those abundance principles that I love to bring even in the classroom.
Sure.
And then from there, that corporate training experience took me into things like the National Speakers Association, and I kind of got coattailed into that, and then found this world, and I found the John Maxwell team and those opportunities, and that's since opened up to owning my own business and fingers in a couple other little businesses and side projects and nonprofit work and that type of stuff. But that's it just kind of went, I started to run at a point where I just said, you know what, I'm going to walk through the doors that open. And as doors opened, I was like, that seems really weird, but I'm just going to walk through them. So I did. And it's led me here so far.
Great.
It's fun.
So you, and I know about this through coaching and also watching you are big on intangibles.
Yes.
And helping people understand why some of the intangibles are your most valuable assets.
Absolutely.
So tell us about how that came to be for you and what you consider some of those intangibles to be. Yeah.
So a lot of people have given me feedback on my company name, and they're like, I don't even know what that means, and it's lame. But I can tell it means something to me, and it keeps me driving.
That's all that matters.
So my company is called Intangible Ownership. Okay. And the focus on that is I believe wholeheartedly in the concept of ownership, and that we truly become our best selves when we have full ownership over our lives. But as I started to do, especially in the corporate training world, I started to focus with people and teach principles and find these true principles. As I started to research those and study them and start to live them, I started to realize that most people are focused on owning the tangibles in their world and holding on to those, the house payment, the car payment, I got to make sure, I got to pay for this and that. And they totally disregard the intangibles of their life. And if they owned the intangibles, their life could grow in so many areas. So those intangibles would be, relationships. A lot of people pursue the tangibles at the expense of relationships. Personal emotions, the ability to control your emotions, but ability to own them rather than turn them over to somebody else. Sure. I think our society right now is really in a spiral at that, right? Oh, you made me mad, right? And so emotions are one of them. My area that I've kind of really zeroed in on recently, the last 18 months or so, is in the mindset aspect, right? Something that we don't really even, unless you're intentional about it, people just kind of let it be, right? And so I focus a lot on intentional mindset and owning that. So that's that world of intangibles. It's the world you can't measure whether your mindset's better than yesterday, but you certainly can feel it.
Sure.
You absolutely can feel it. You can't measure if you're emotionally happier 90% of the time. Like, you can't put a number on it, but you know it, right? And that's the area that I love to focus on. And I find that people especially inside the coaching world, and, you know is best, but to the audience, like to that coaching world, a lot of those intangibles are what I'm helping you develop. So we don't focus a lot on like, all right, let's set this goal. And then when you hit that number, then you know we did it. Because instead it's about growth and development inside of those core intangible areas. And you just know when you've hit those results.
Totally. I agree,
Right.
100%. My introduction into personal development came from Franklin Covey, right? So when I was 12 years old, I begged for a Franklin Day Planner.
Yeah.
And then that got me into writing mission statements and prioritizing to-do lists and setting goals and doing all of that from kind of a young age. I mean, my 12-year-old isn't really doing that right now, but different interests, different friend paths that lead you different ways, I guess. But so I was really ingrained into the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and went to some other Covey trainings. And so I love personal development, but I remember being in college and having my boss, Dan Matheson, who I honor and respect in this whole conversation, but he was one of the most put together personally and professionally person I knew. He was well dressed. He, took really good care of his business time. He was on the clock when he was on the clock. And he, pressed his shirts and cared about lots of things. Like from my outside view, he had a great life. And he told me he had a life coach, and I kind of laughed. I didn't laugh at his face, which was good. And I've told him this story since, but he was telling me about his life coach. And I was like, gosh, if Dan Matheson needs a life coach, then something's really wrong going on there, because I'm like, just set a goal.
What's happened to the world?
And make it happen. He was talking to me about accountability, and I was like, still weird. Coaching's weird, which is funny because now I'm a coach and I coach people, and now I pay people to coach me. So because I always want to be at the top of my game and make sure that I'm not falling behind. And so I get that. And it's interesting because people will say the same thing to me. Well, I'll just do it myself. So what would you say to someone who sits and listens to this conversation and says, I don't need a coach, I can just do it myself?
Yeah. The first thing is good job for being at that level. Yeah, if you're at that level that you don't need a coach, congratulations. I have a coach as well. I'll always have a coach. And I think it's interesting because I think the world, especially in the business world, there's a misunderstanding of coaching. Okay. And I work a lot to try and clarify it. And I have other coaches that don't like me for trying to do that. Okay.
Go ahead. I allow it.
So I believe there's a difference in coaching and, like, say, mentorship. Okay. Those experiences. Totally. Okay. As a coach, if we were to say this, if we're speaking to the audience and you just place them here, right? As a coach, imagine that I'm here and you've experienced it, but for their sake, I'm here to come in. I'm here to focus and cheer and drive entirely your results, your desires. Mm-hmm. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to dig into it via 2 things. We're gonna do it non-judgmental questioning. Okay, we're not gonna.
Sometimes it feels judgmental, but that's on me.
Okay. Maybe it sounds judgmental. I'm working on that.
No, it's on me.
But no, non-judgmental questioning. We're going to drive into areas. We're going to question decisions. We're going to question. And the point of it is we're going to really try and dig into what's in the subconscious. Okay. Because the subconscious processing ability is exponentially larger than our conscious mind. And sometimes consciously we're trying to find an answer that if we would just turn off the conscious for a second and get to the subconscious, we could find an answer. So it's going to come through questioning. And then the second tier is once that subconscious brings it to our awareness, we're going to introduce accountability. And we're going to ask if you want to be accountable for it. And the only thing inside the coaching relationship in terms of accountability is that I'm going to ask about it. That's it. You don't empower me to hold your bank account or to freeze your assets or, right? There's no empowerment there on that side of things. It's literally that the next time we meet, I'm going to ask about that and we're going to talk about it. And if you're not there, we're going to try and figure out how come you didn't get there. And so for a lot of people, they go into coaching relationships and they find, coaches that are like, hey, here's the 3-step method to whatever, right? To me, that's actually not coaching. Mm-hmm. If you're telling me how to do it, that's mentorship. If you're saying this is a path and I'm going to take you on this path. That's mentorship in my understanding of the world. Coaching is, what would you like to accomplish? When do you want to accomplish it by? Now, let's sit down and let's get there faster, more efficiently, because now we've got, for Napoleon Hill, he would have talked about the third mind. But you and I sit down, our collective mind is greater than our individual minds. So when you say to that person, what about that person that says, I don't need a coach, I can do it myself? Well, you're missing the third mind that Napoleon Hill talks about in Think and Grow Rich. That's where we put the two of our minds together, and there becomes this joint collected mind that's a greater understanding than either one of us could come to alone. That's the power that comes inside coaching.
I love it.
Yeah.
One of the statistics that I share when I'm speaking on personal development is that if you have a goal, that's great. You have like a 7% chance of accomplishing the goal. But the study that I read said that if you are accountable to someone, your success goes up to 65%. You're 65, a huge gap.
10x.
Right? Yep.
Right.
So you're 10 times more likely to accomplish your goal if you're accountable to someone. Mm-hmm. But then it goes up to 95% if you're accountable to someone by a specific time. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I love about the coaching relationship is that I know if I have a call with you, and my clients know when they have a call with me that time is coming up. And so even if it's not about, hey, you owe me $1,000, or like you said, take the bank account, that timing is so effective because we have a time limit that says, hey, I want to get this done by this time. Yeah. And yet at the same time, there have been plenty of times where I've shown up and I've been like, yeah, it didn't happen, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's an opportunity to grow. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. There might be some works or blocks I can work through to make it better. But sometimes it's like, hey, life happened and this was this other thing and it's okay. Yep. And I think that's one of the trickiest parts that I'm in right now with a lot of my coaching clients is the world is so weird and circumstances are so different that trying to look at your success and your progress with 2019 eyes is different than looking at your success and progress in 2021 eyes. Yeah. And quite frankly, that's neutral. But the reality is that it is different and circumstances are different. And in some cases harder for people. And some circumstances legitimately are more and trickier to deal with. Yeah. But still having that structure of accountability and a coach that says, hey, do you want to do this? If so, yes. When do you want to do that by? Yeah. I think that's a great process that says, okay, yeah, I'm willing to commit and move forward. But I would love for you to weigh in. What are you noticing with your clients in the current age that we live in? Yeah. And how are you noticing things shifting, or how are you helping people get past common blocks?
This is really hard. I'm going to do my best to try and do this sensitively. Yeah. Fair enough. I'm trying to be sensitive to the audiences.
Yeah, I also want you to call it like it is.
Okay. Fair enough. We'll meet in the middle.
Okay.
We'll meet in the middle.
Do you want to tell me the sensitive way to say it and then the real way to say it?
I'm not sure if I know the sensitive way, but I'm going to do my best.
Okay, I can't wait.
So here's the deal. Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns. I might argue that if you have a goal that you've wanted or a dream that you've wanted in your life, there's always been unknowns.
Sure.
So I get that there's different unknowns right now. But for my clients, one of the main things that I have continued to push and did all through, we had to switch virtual last year, and a lot of my calls were Zoom only, and we weren't talking face to face. But one of the things I emphasize all the time, and I do it in every call, you know it, but what are we going to act on? What are we going to act on? We have to stay in motion. You have to stay in motion. And I think what's happening is the current situation, not just with the pandemic situation, but the political turmoil and everything that it's got people frozen. And instead of doing something, instead of staying in motion, they just stopped. Mm-hmm. Stopping's not an option inside of my coaching relationships with my clients. And so here's the sensitive part. Many of my clients have had the best years of their lives this last year in their careers. I have a company that since its inception in 1994, had never hit above a certain number in the business, and it doesn't matter with the sake of what it is. Let's call it pineapples, but they couldn't get above 62 pineapples, right? And by January of this year, they were at 84, and have now consistently held 84, having never hit over 62 since 94, right?
Awesome.
And so, but that happened because we didn't stop. Other things stopped, but we're going to still every day, even if it's a half step, even if it's an inch, we're going to take a step every day. We're going to take a step every day. People overestimate what they can do in a day, but they underestimate what they can do in a year. So we fill our schedules and we get done with the day and we're like, oh, I can't believe I missed this, and this. But then you look at something that might take a year to accomplish and we say, oh, we could never do that. So we never start. And so let's just get started, right? Let's get started. So motion is important in my relationships with coaching. Being in motion is important. I believe in the law of momentum. And the law of momentum can't occur if we stop, if we freeze. So all the unknowns, we're going to take all the unknowns, but that's not going to put us into neutral. We're going to take all the unknowns and then we're going to figure out where to step with all the unknowns.
Okay, is that also the answer to the clients and the individuals that say, well, I and myself included, I kind of joke about this, but there's some truth to it, right?
Okay.
That I have a little PTSD in the goal department, right? Because I had some great goals in 2020, right? I there were great things that I was going to do, and the reality is that it wouldn't have mattered. I could not have powered through on my speaking goal. That just wasn't something that could happen. Okay. But at the same time, like, it's fine. I get it. And I honor and trust what happened. But now I'm like, oh, can I even set goals in this world? What if something else happens? And is it even worth setting a goal? Maybe I'll just bob along and have a show and not have goals.
No,
you know?
I totally get it. And I think I might say it like this. People hold this goal, we'll call it a goal, right? I like to call them, it's a vision out there, right? I got a vision of the future. And then we tend to like work backwards and make this plan, right? And it's like, here's the path to getting to this vision, okay? To getting this goal, to accomplishing this. And I think what happens is somewhere between making the goal and making the plan to accomplish the goal, somewhere along the path, we marry ourselves to the plan, not the goal. And so when our plan gets frustrated, we ditch the goal. I think there's a myriad of paths to the goal, but I think a lot of people married themselves to the plan.
I like that.
Okay.
I like that distinction.
Hold your image.
Right.
The image is not the plan of how you were going to do it. If the plan gets burnt to the ground, find another way. If there's a brick wall there, figure out how to get through it, over it, under it, whatever, but let's get around it. So I think that's what happens is people, their plans got frustrated, and therefore they said, well, now the goal is frustrated. If the plan's frustrated, just create another plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Like that.
You sit over in that chair like it's so easy.
I don't know that easy's the right path. It's very intentional.
Sure.
It's very intentional.
But that goes back to what you were talking about at the beginning but what are the intangibles, right?
Yes.
If being intentional is a core value, then you're not going to be swayed by outside circumstances in the same way. You're going to choose to be intentional with the life that you've been given.
Yeah.
And if that means changing the plan or even sometimes changing the goal or changing the destination, it's still choosing into being intentional and creating what you want in your life.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, if you were to ask me, and I've told you this before, so this is like a spoiler alert, but we're going to tell the audience.
We got to let them know.
Yeah, we're going to tell them.
Come listen.
Come close. The interesting thing is that for the last, 15 years of my life, I've been a marketing coach, right? A marketing coach, trainer, consultant. But 100% of my clients are people who also need help with the mindset, because it's not just about getting the marketing done. It's about making space for in your brain and or creating a plan that you can execute and or creating goals that work forward. And so I've always considered myself a happiness coach, which is the same thing. If I can get somebody to understand marketing, that makes them happy and that makes me happy, right? I want people, my core value, like you want to help people who help people, which I think is great. And there's a piece of that for me too, but I want to help people be happy. I want them to be just so crazy freaking happy all the time.
I love that.
Right? It's great. And if I can do that through marketing or I can do that through personal development, they're equally joyful for me because people are coming into feeling true joy. I think we need more of that in the world. So what, in the work that you do and the individuals that you work with and speaking and training and whatever it is, I know you have lots of offerings and things that you do. As you think about what you see, either some of the biggest mistakes that people are making that keep them from being in intangible ownership, what would you say those are, the top 2 or 3
Mistakes?
or places where you're like, I see this and I want to go in and just kind of tweak it a little?
People are willing to give up their ownership all the time.
Okay.
They'll give up their ownership of they'll go from they'll have a great day at work and they'll get in their car to drive home and they'll get mad at the traffic. And they'll give up the entire day of work.
No, nobody does that.
Yeah. Right, just like that, right? Or one I just got back from Kenya. We won't go into that. But here's one that I noticed. I had a member of the group that something would happen and it was, frustrating something or some part of the plan didn't work. And they'd go, yeah, of course it's me. Of course it's me. And I sat them down the second night and I said, look, guys, I've heard you use the term, of course it's me. And I need you to understand that when we go on our trips here, we see a lot of miracles happen. I do humanitarian work, right? We see a lot of miracles happen. And when those miracles happen, do you know what we say? Yeah, of course it did. So there's 2 ways you can approach that.
Sure.
Right? You go to the DMV and you pull the line out and it's like 9999999 and you're like, oh man, of course that's my number, right? And they're serving number 13. You're like, oh, of course that's me, right? But there's another way to look at it. There's another way to see what happens in our lives. And it's of course it is on the positive side of things. Sure. So I guess that would be the kind of that first realm is we give up our ownership too easily to other things, outside conditions and circumstances. I
can't give that heartier amen. And you learn things the hard way, but my favorite phrase used to be, my day was not my own. Like my husband would come home from work and he would say, how was your day? And I'd be like, oh, my day was not my own. Okay. And I don't know where it came from. I'm sure I saw it somewhere, but it was like, my kid needed something or this needed to happen or the neighbor down the street or whatever it was. And I remember sitting somewhere in personal development and they weren't even talking about that, but I was like, oh, my day was not my own is killing me. Like it's just killing me. Yeah. I'm giving away my ownership. I'm giving away my power. And yeah, you can have days where your kid pukes on the carpet and you're 5 minutes from a meeting and the neighbor down the street needs something and you have something else that comes up. But if you choose those things and say, yes, I'm all in, then it was absolutely your day. Yeah. It was 100% your own.
Yeah. And isn't it amazing that you had the ability to clean up the mess, help the neighbor and get on the 5-minute meeting?
Totally.
Like, isn't it incredible that you can turn around and adjust and adapt and handle those things? Right. I mean, yeah, it's amazing to look at when you just flip around a little bit.
I cut you off. Were there any other mistakes you were thinking of?
I think the second one I would really emphasize is the mistake people make of fearing failure. I think people are terrified of failure. Sure. And I think that goes very deep programming. I mean, you figure we enter the education world here at 4 or 5 years old. And from then on, A failure is something we don't bring home to mom and dad. A failure is something that mom and dad ground us for. A failure is something that we lose the car for, right? And it's just like, don't fail, don't fail, don't fail, don't fail, don't fail. And yet the only path, and I would say the only path significantly, the only path to success is failure.
Totally. And it's a great teacher.
It's the only way through it. It's the only way through it. And so people fail and they immediately are like, oh man, I love John Maxwell, you mentored, you mentioned him on me as a member of his team, but he's mentored me, right? And John's like, look, here's the deal. You're never good the first time. So just get over it. You're never good the first time. And I love that. I embrace that wholeheartedly now. I'm like, people are like, hey, do you think you could do this? I'm like, I don't know if I can do it well yet, but let's figure it out. Let's go check that out. Let's see, right? And that's the only way through. And so I think people freeze in their failures, or at least don't want to admit them, or they, if they're going to have a coaching call, I can't talk to my coach about my failure, about not doing it. And that's exactly what needs to happen to break through the other side, is to address it, to talk about it. So that I would put those two as the two biggest mistakes I think I see.
Okay. Well, you and I could talk for a really long time.
Yes.
But
all day.
All day would be great. But before we wrap,
are we like hit our time?
It's okay. Before we wrap, I would love for you to share with the audience. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you're like, ooh, this really fires me up, or I really want? What do they need to know to live a make it happen life?
Stay close to her. I'm serious. I love being around. I love talking to you. I love the strategy sessions we have. You are a genius in your world. And I know when you talk about having people that you want to help drive a happier life, I know that's genuine. So yeah, fire up, stay close to her.
I'll pay you for that later.
No, listen to what, that's free 99 right there. that's yeah. Seriously, you're one of those people. I don't always hire everyone that wants to hire me. It's a dual hiring process, and I don't. And so when you approached me and we talked about, some coaching services and stuff, I knew absolutely, yes, I know where you're going and what you're trying to accomplish. And yeah, I'll help that all day. I'll help. Yeah. You're
nice. Thanks, friend.
Yeah.
Where can people find out more about you? Where do you like to be?
So they won't find out much because I don't do a whole lot with my website, but I'll send them there. But I'll send, I don't work that way, but you can always get on my calendar, at least on my website. So that's intangibleownership.com. Good luck spelling that. But if you can spell correctly,
no worries.
If you can spell it correctly, intangibleownership.com. All that literally, all I do for my website is run it straight to a calendar to jump on a call. Because I'm very much more, let's talk, let's meet. We can do that personally. We can do that over the phone, whatever it is, Zoom call. But I don't run a whole lot of other stuff, fancy schmancy on the website side of things. Let's just get together and figure out how we're going to change the world.
I like it.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
I am ready to share with you a few of my favorite things. Today, we're leaning a little towards personal hygiene, but I think we should all focus and talk about her personal hygiene a little bit more than we actually do. First and foremost, one of my favorite things is the Wisp disposable toothbrushes. These things are amazing. You can just tuck them in your bag and they have just a tiny bit of toothpaste on them. You just crack it, you brush your teeth and you toss it. It means you don't have to carry around a toothbrush. My friend Jen carries a toothbrush with her everywhere. I kind of think that's a little gross in my bag. I love you, Jen. Love you so much. But I love Wisps because then I can brush my teeth on the go when I need to, before a business meeting, after a business lunch or whatever, before I step back in. I love the Wisps. You can find these at the dollar store, by the way, which is awesome. You get 4 for $1.25. So great. Okay, second, everyone needs a 10-foot long charging cable for their phone, okay? This is great for travel. I should share this in a travel segment, but today you need to know about the 10-foot long cord so that when you are in a hotel, hypothetically speaking, that does not have working cords by your bed, that you don't fret because you can still hold on to your phone. Now, maybe we should be talking about favorite things to do unplugged so that you're not trying to get your phone to be right close to you. But for now, If you want your phone close to you while you sleep, the 10-foot cord is the answer. We just got this little beauty from the Amazon. We'll put a link below for you so that you can find it there. Now, last personal hygiene item, we're going to have to put a picture up because my friend accidentally took my suitcase home last night after a very long flight, and now I have her suitcase and she has mine. But everyone needs the doTERRA Deep Blue Stick, okay? This is for like your aches and pains. I don't know if it's just because I'm old or if I'm still recovering from my car accident many months ago, but I wake up with like pains in my neck and my shoulder. I just roll that Deep Blue Stick on and it provides a nice cooling effect and just tells my body, hey, something right here needs your attention. I feel like everyone needs one of these. We will put a link for that in the show notes as well. Just a few of my favorite things, and I would love to hear what some of your favorite things are. Please reach out to us, share it in the comments, or also you can email me at michelle@speakmichelle.com. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for watching today's episode. I sure got a ton out of what Alan had to say, and I hope it was helpful to you as well. Also, a few favorite things to keep you going for the next few days and weeks ahead. I honor you for giving me time in your day. I know you have lots of places to be, but thank you for being here. If you have 30 seconds, I would love for you to subscribe so that you'll hear about the latest episodes as they're coming to you, and make sure you leave a rating or review so that others who may be interested in the show will find it because of the things that you had to say. What I would love is if you would share a takeaway from today's episode that really resonated with you, so that people are hearing the actual things that we're talking about and not just that the show is awesome. Though that can be great too. If you want to say that, I accept. Thank you so much for being part of Make It Happen. All of the things that we talked about today are in the show notes and available for you at speakmichelle.com/podcasts. Thanks for being part of the Make It Happen team.